All right. Hello, everyone. Very good morning to all of you over here. We're very excited to, host this LinkedIn Live panel discussion today. And I'm very happy to say that, of course, we have myself, Rahul from Everest Group, but we also have two very esteemed panelists who've also joined us for the discussion today, right? So it's actually great to have this panel with a whole good mix of people. Um, I think we'll want to get started with introductions, of course. We'll tell you a little bit about ourselves, the kind of work we do. But while we do that, it would also be nice if you tell us where you all are tuning in from, right? So feel free to type in the comments and throughout this discussion, like make sure if you have any questions, feel free to post. We want to make this as interactive as possible. And the point is to actually have a live discussion, right? So the audience is as big a part of this discussion as we are, is what I would say. All right. So with that, I think I'll kick off. Quickly starting off with my introduction. I'm a practice director at Everest Group, and I lead our sourcing and vendor management team. So I'm basically working a lot with CPOs, category managers across IT, business process spend, just helping them optimizing their spend, thinking about their supply base, understanding supplier capabilities, as well as market trends across various categories, right? So we're building a lot of research on procurement technologies, functional best practices across category management, as well as vendor management. So that's a little bit about me. I'm tuning in from Gurgaon in India. And I think what I'll do is I'll hand it over to Rahul so that he can also quickly introduce himself, followed by, of course, Bapa and Shyam as well.
Thanks, Panushree. Hi, everyone. Good to be on this discussion, interesting discussion that we have. My name is Rahul Barve, Vice President within Everest Group, part of the commercial and solution analytics team, essentially helping a lot of enterprises optimize their, current contracts with various service providers across the overall BPO areas as well as consulting and professional services areas. Overall, 14 years in the industry, last 8 years have been benchmarking, a lot of these, contracts, right, that I just talked about. Happy to be on this discussion, right, talk through some of those insights as well. I'm also joined by, our esteemed guests. Bapati, do you want to go next?
Absolutely. Thank you, Rahul, and thank you, Vanashri and Team Everest, first of all, for organizing such an impactful session. And I welcome all of you, the audience who are seeing us live. And it's pleasure to be here and share the platform with an esteemed panelist, right? Sham, also with me is joining us. So as a part of my introduction, I'm based out of Hyderabad. I'm a finance professional by education. Overall, 18 years experience I have. Currently working with Novartis as a category head for IT services and global procurement. Prior to that, I was with Capgemini and another Indian firm. I primarily oversee all the IT spend within Novartis, by and large dealing with all top suppliers, driving category strategy, driving productivity, supply risk management, and of course the SRM. Looking forward to have a engaging discussion with all of you, and we'll try to answer as much as questions that you might have in order to help you better in your work in terms of knowledge or actions. With that, I hand over to my colleague Shan. Thank you.
Hi, good morning to everybody. And first of all, thank you very much, Banu and Rahul and Everest Group, to provide this opportunity to be part of this uh, event. And about myself, I heading a procurement for B Brown Group for last 5.5 years. And so both direct and indirect. B Brown is a medical device pharma company, mainly a manufacturing company, meaning host of pharma as well medical devices product across the world, including India. And before that, I was in China, Beijing for 2 years, which also brought me a lot of insight about the China procurement and China supply chain catering to African markets. And before that, I had relatively longer tenure of 10 years in various roles in pharma and ophthalmics within the Novartis. So yeah, I have worked across direct as well as indirect, also offshoring, outsourcing, and happy to be part of this event and contribute for the learning of all the viewers and also the viewers which will join later. So really appreciate all the efforts going behind it and look forward for this discussion.
Great. All right. Thank you, Papa and Sham, for that introduction. And with that, I think I want to just set some context on, what the discussion is going to be about, right? What is it that we're going to talk about today? Now, if we think about the times these days, there's a lot of, repetitive, I would say, risks that are arising in the environment, right? Sometimes there's tariffs, sometimes there's the Indo-Pak escalation, sometimes before that there were other things that were coming up. Now, when it comes to all of these aspects and just looking at the dynamic and changing landscape these days, with the experience that all of us are bringing in across procurement, across various global organizations, and across direct and indirect spend, what we want to discuss is that how is it that sourcing should continuously evolve to be able to manage in the times of risk, right, or in the times that are so dynamic. That is part one. The second thing we would be focusing on is, of course, always a procurement priority has been to, save costs. But are we also moving more towards a partnership-driven approach in which we're getting more of a seat at the table? Are we also becoming more innovation-oriented when it comes to procurement? So we're moving from that cost optimization function to more of a value-driven function today. That's another thing we're going to discuss in a lot of detail. And of course, all the things that come under it in terms of your technology. We cannot have a discussion without discussing AI, agentic AI, right? We cannot have a discussion without discussing ESG, because that's of course another area that we should all be, speaking about. It's not just a must-have; it's also becoming more than that, right? So with that setting, context setting in place, what I want to do is also ask Rahul to share his perspectives a little bit on how he sees the market evolving when it comes from a contracting, price benchmarking, solutioning perspective, and how has it sort of changed over the past years? We all have coming from multiple years of experience. So what is it different? What is different today versus what was there earlier?
No, thanks, Banusri, right, for putting that context, right? So again, I mean, if I talk about 2025, right, this is certainly a time of, high degree of uncertainty, and if you are a procurement leader, certainly even more difficult time, right, that you have. So as you rightly said, right, there's this U.S. tariffs, the policies, which is kind of disrupting the overall global supply chains. There is this overall global slowdown. There's even more pressure now on procurement leaders to save the overall cost. We are again seeing a lot of those advent of AI, Gen AI, which is also disrupting the overall services industry. As we currently see, so all of these things essentially mean that procurement leaders need to be more savvy. How they manage their current procurement portfolios, how they optimize the overall cost, right? And in these times, we are seeing the service providers also, right, being impacted equally. Considering the overall spend in terms of some of the spend available to some of these leaders, right? So we are seeing they being more open in the industry, right, in terms of the cost takeout, cost optimization measures, right? So again, I would then also go to our two of our distinguished guests to get some of their perspectives of what they are currently seeing, especially in the overall sourcing and vendor management landscape. And first, I think the most important that we are currently observing is cost optimization areas. So I would bring in Sham, right, to hear his views, especially considering the overall cost optimization objectives in the industry, how he is seeing the overall procurement function, right, play a strategic role, and how they can bring in more savings with less, right? So Sham, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, sure. So thanks Rahul for asking this. So I've been in the procurement now almost 25 plus years. So seen narratives of procurement evolving and how procurement getting seats on the table, boardrooms, and those things. I think one of the things which will remain for times to come is always the cost and that optimization part of it, because business faces the headwinds which possibly business is not prepared for to protect the profit. So I think cost optimization reduction is a central theme which will continue, and we are seeing that it is more aggressive because there is always a threshold by which you can increase your end product or services prices. So virtually it comes to that you have to find ways and means to reduce your costs, and procurement plays a very vital role into that. Of course, other function also plays. So cost reduction is one of the major driver, continue to be. Also what we are seeing, I think in last 4 to 5 years, that companies are taking cost avoidance also very aggressively. So typically in the CFO world, let's say finance world, cost reduction was always taken. Oh, cost reduction is not the real saving. But now people are realizing that cost avoidance is also a very big contributor to your margin expansions, because it doesn't have a baseline to compare from the previous year and everything. But cost avoidance is also a very, very important strategy which we have to work upon. Coming to what we are seeing is that reducing costs on the direct material spends, it is always very tricky, and you need to prepare for next 2 years, 3 years, because your high lead time for validation and all those things. So companies are going aggressive on the indirect spend, where they can reduce expenses, they can totally eliminate the requirement of such expenses, and also can optimize very aggressive on these expenses. The other trend which we are seeing clearly, a part of let's say narrative of cost, which procurement is always pushed on and delivering over the many years, is also the risk, formal approach to the risk side of the supply chain. So let's say you have many disruption coming, so how we can formally measure these risks, and how we mitigate those risks, and how much we are prepared for known, and how much we are prepared if possible for unknown. I think those approaches are also coming in, and procurement is looked into it. Earlier procurement was not so looked upon it, but now we are clearly seeing, and that's a very good for the professionals, people who are in the procurement side of it, because it's elevating their profile to the more strategic nature of it. So I think these de-riskings are not something which will happen in 6 months or a year. It takes time, but then the board, the CFOs, and also the management committees are there looking into these very deeply, because they are real cost, and it can have a huge implication on the business continuity. It can also wipe out your profits and also the other market leadership positions. So these are some of the trends which personally I am seeing, along with the technology play, which is ever evolving with the invent of AI and everything.
So these are great insights, Sham sir, and I think what we have also seen is, of course, cost avoidance is a great point, right? When procurement is, greatly tied to the finance function, what the CFOs usually look at is, okay, is there a P&L impact? If not, how should we measure it? Should we even give that much attention to it? But cost avoidance is a great tool. It's a great KPI that procurement has, and they're saving a lot of money through these aspects. So I think great points, Shamsur. And Bapade, I think I wanted to also ask you a similar question, but then again, bringing in some nuances maybe from the pharma industry, right? If you can add more of a flavor from that front and answer the same question as to how do you see procurement playing a role in cost optimization? How do you feel it has changed over the past couple of years?
No, no, absolutely. I think what Sham narrated, right, and he also elaborated a bit little more about the cost avoidance, and can't agree more on those areas that where organization are being seen more now, kind of avoiding cost, because if you can't avoid, then that would become your baseline, right? So there is already an increased attention, I would say, from our senior management across finance, procurement, to emphasize furthermore. Now, if I talk about the optimization, especially on the pharma industry, and what I have seen in my last 10 years, in Novartis context, and also with my peer group, that is over the years in the pharma industry, cost optimization has evolved from being a tactical exercise to a strategic imperative. In the early stage, the focus was primarily on price negotiation by and large, right? But now it's about end-to-end value creation, whether that's through supply collaboration, demand aggregation, or digital procurement tools that also enhance our, spend visibility, which historically was not there, in full fledged. The other aspect, I would say, one key shift I have seen in the increased alignment between procurement, R&D, supply chain teams, because these are the value chain over the different business processes, and then you kind of make the end product reaching to your end patients, right? So which helps driving efficiency without compromising on compliance, innovation, especially in pharma where quality and timelines are non-negotiable. And speed is the new currency in today's world, because the way diseases are coming, the way we are reimagining medicines and so on and so forth, it becomes imperative that we act fast, and that fast that we able to contribute to our top line as well. When it comes to giving back to the society, and of course the ability to cost optimization, maintaining standard has been a game changer. So that's a bit of perspective on the pharma side of the thing, if that helps.
Well, that's quite helpful to know, Papa. I think speed is definitely an essence, right, in these times of uncertainty, right? And so we are also seeing some of the large deals, especially in the overall services market, with a lot of cost takeout mandates, right? Coming from the overall CPO as well as CEOs nowadays. And I think Sham sir also mentioned about some of the categories, especially in the indirect spend areas, right, where we are seeing a lot of the pressure, right? So Bapade sir, you talked about the overall pharma industry, right, and what we are seeing. So in terms of, if I talk about some of the deal activities, right, we are certainly seeing specific sectors, like BFS, even insurance, telecom, high tech, especially in the software areas, right, where we are seeing a lot of these large deals with cost takeout mandates in the current market scenario. While if I talk about some of the industries where it has been relatively slower in the last couple of quarters, has been areas like healthcare, manufacturing, energy and utilities, etc., right? So that's something that completely concur. We are also seeing some of those cost optimization, right, with renewed focus, especially across some of the deals, right, that we are seeing, and which procurement leaders are currently going after, right, with this cost optimization mandate. I also wanted to check with our esteemed panelist, especially in terms of any change in the vendor behavior, right, that you are seeing in 2025, right, especially considering the overall outsourcing market, right, has been relatively slow in 2024, in the first and second quarter as well. Are you seeing more flexibility from your vendors, like openness to reduce rate cards, to drive some of these cost optimization across some of your existing relationships? So is that something that you're also observing?
Well, yeah, I think it's a very good point, Rahul, you are bringing, right? With the evolving dynamics, what we are seeing geopolitically, right, as well, Russia, Ukraine, this U.S. tariff, all of those things, is definitely what we are adopting as a procurement leader for this quarter may not be applicable fully for next quarter, right? Now, to give you further insight and visibility, right, in the last two to three quarters, what we are seeing in the market, right, which is kind of a mixed trend. While some suppliers are pushing back on rate cards, due to inflation and input cost pressure on their product, services, and all, but others are more open, especially where we have demonstrated long-term partnership value, right? And the key driver we have found effective is, to deal with those long-term strategic players is volume commitment, multi-year contracts that offer supply stability and value, engineering workshop to uncover joint savings. Additionally, cost modeling, benchmarking help and anchoring discussion in data, not emotions. Ultimately, it's about shifting from adversarial negotiation to collaborative problem solving, and that's a very important aspect. And that mindset not only leads to better deal but also strengthen a supply relationship for the long term. So that's a key observation trending over last, by and large 2 to 3 quarters, I would say, and that would gonna be further continuing in my opinion in next quarters to come. But happy to have also Sam, any thoughts from your side in
So I
this?
think Bappa well said, and just because I'm also coming from the heavy pharma and medical device side, uh, what we are seeing at the initial stage, and some of the companies are a little mature, that many large suppliers who are into whether in the CDMO space and those spaces, because as the pressure on the cost mounts, whether due to geopolitical or due to tariff expected tariff burden, um, I think whenever we talk about outsourcing, offshourcing, it was always a service provided to European pole or hub or to US hub. These are the typically two markets where 70-75% of our services billing goes, and maybe very minimum coming from the actually APAC region. But what we are seeing now, and including, let's say, it is at a very early stage, but it will very also evolve very fast, is many pharma companies are now looking home market, which are also lucrative in terms of giving the services. And typically Indian pharma companies has a lot of things which they are doing themselves, because that's how the pharma companies have evolved over last 20 years or 30 years. And now they are looking at taking a step back, that okay, what possibly multinationals companies, multi companies are doing, we can also do it to reduce the cost, because I think that market is a very interesting market, easy to deliver. So let's say if we have, let's say Bappa is coming from Novartis, which has 10,000 people, and maybe there are many other companies which have a huge BPO base. But if the portion of that is dedicated to India market or APAC market, the turnarounds and value realization and volume realization is equally lucrative than the traditional US and the European market. So we are seeing that some early shift. Maybe primarily one reason is the cost pressure, and also to invent the new markets. And these markets are also now good remunerative from the really, the delta is not so big that you charge X to Europe or US and you get one fourth or one fifth of what you're charging. So we are seeing those trends, and it is very good for especially the mature service providers in India. Maybe they can also offer the bundled approach, that okay, because you're opening a new market for us, we will be looking to you, give you benefits in other your key markets. So I think these are also important trend, which personally, as I interact with the people, I'm seeing.
No,
Also, the
great, great.
angle of VC is also coming into play. You know, the healthcare is very predominantly dominated in India by venture capitalists, and I think their approach is to really maximize profit in at least a near horizon of 3 to 5 years. So that is also propelling this whole thing very fast.
Great points, right? I think you talked about the shift, right, in the overall, APAC region, right? And certainly, right, we are seeing, even a lot of enterprises focusing on, the overall BCP plan, right, the business continuity plan, trying to manage the overall risk, especially considering the current, uncertainty. We are seeing, flexibility related clauses being added, right, in terms of, changing some of those delivery locations or changing some of the BCP solutions as well, right? In real time. Considering the tariffs as well, right? We are seeing some of the innovative tariff related clauses, right? Which based on some of those changes, right? The renegotiation clauses are being kind of added, especially from a contracting lens, and even from a negotiation standpoint, right? A lot of large enterprises, considering the overall economic situation, are asking for some of those COLA waivers, right? So just for this year, asking the service providers if we can waive off the COLA inflation, right? And in fact, some of the service providers are considering the partnerships, right, and trying to retain their clients, are going after some of those. I think Bappa, they also mentioned about the overall benchmarking related, right, using some of the external data, right? So we are seeing a lot of invocation of the midterm benchmarking clauses as well, trying to take help, right, in the overall cost optimization mandate, the price declines that we are seeing, right, in near term. So that's something that they're trying to uh, use that opportunity through those midterm benchmarking clause. Also, we are seeing a lot of those AI led productivity increases, right? So trying to see if anything can be done across some of their current contracts, right? So using some of those to kind of negotiate the current contracts. Even in terms of the pricing models, right, we are seeing the overall shift, right, towards more output and outcome based pricing model, right, across some of the portfolios, rather than going with a time and material basis, right, because there are chances of disruption, right, cost inflation, right, because of all of these factors, across, and the rate card changes, etc., which can happen. And that's where a lot of enterprises are trying to move towards those more output and outcome based construct, right, rather than being fixated with some of the TNM, right. In fact, we are also seeing some of the like small term deals, right. So instead of going with a like a 5 year or a 7 year kind of a construct, right, enterprises are looking to play slightly short, right? Go for a like a 3 year deal, or do like a proof of concept, right? And based on the proof of concept, right, go with a larger deal, right? So all of those things, right, that we are certainly seeing, and procurement folks are trying to manage their overall risk, right, as part of some of these levers, right? So that's something that just wanted to talk through as well. I think considering we discussed a lot about the overall cost optimization, right? And I think our esteemed guest also mentioned kind of co-innovating with their suppliers, right? So I would just probably check with Bappa there. I think you mentioned about working with your strategic suppliers, right, and trying to manage the overall relationship, and focusing on the overall innovation, right? So how are you kind of driving some of those innovations, right, with suppliers?
No, absolutely. I think that's the crux of the puzzle now, right? And I'm a believer of a fact that, even if you are in procurement and you are being tasked to drive productivity, right? Tangible, intangible, to support bottom line and top line, but eventually, without your suppliers, right, you cannot run. So first and foremost, you have to take a partnership approach rather than being being an aggressive approach, I would say, and that leads to a point that the shift from transactional to strategic supply relationship, right, has been one of the most impactful changes in the procurement over last probably 1 decade. What I'm seeing also in the industry, when we approach a supplier as partner rather than vendors, right? Because there's a difference, in my opinion, in vendor and partner. And vendor runs on SOW, terms, condition, all of those things. But eventually, partner runs on spirit, trust, and an overall long-term aspect, right? To have a mutual beneficial relationship. So we unlock a wealth of innovation and collaboration, right? And here is an important point to make, right? It's not only bottom line. We all know what's our traditional responsibility being a procurement leader, to support our bottom line cost. But at the same time, what has been changing, and it's for better good for procurement people, is we are also being considered to support the top line growth. And how, right? It's a very simple thing, right? If you can contribute to your top line growth, you need to be very much strategic to your supplier base in terms of having an early access to their innovation, co-developing the product, get into an early adopter program, and so on and so forth, where that puts you in an advantageous position than your competitors, right? Where you would be able to, discover medicine faster, right? Manufacture the medicine faster, reaching to patient faster, with all those advanced technological, advancement that are happening in the market. And that access you can only get if you are, have that trust with your supplier, and you can make that supplier to a strategy, and eventually it becomes a preferred supplier for you, right? So strategic suppliers often have insights into emerging technologies, best practices, process efficiency that can create real competitive advantage, as I said, right? At the same time, being transparent, consistent, and fair, we can position ourselves as a customer of choice for them, right? Which means priority access to the capacity, better service level. Often, first looks for new capabilities, and it's a two-way street. When we invest in the relationship, suppliers are more likely to be motivated, invest in us, and that's where real value gets created. So that's my take, at least when it comes to the partnership with the supplier.
Yeah. No, that these are great points, Papa, and I completely agree on, just having that relationship and becoming a preferred customer for your suppliers as well, right? Especially your strategic suppliers. You want to have those leadership to leadership level connects. You want to ensure they know about your strategies at a broader level as well. What we've seen is also that sometimes, large organizations, they struggle a lot with just segmenting the suppliers in the first place, right? We're looking at a whole bunch of suppliers, and teams are struggling with, okay, finding out who are these top tier of strategic suppliers, right? And something that we always, advise them is that even if you have decided that, okay, these are your top tier of strategic suppliers based on many levels that you mentioned, right? It could be based on the spend, it could be based on the process complexity, the relationship that you've had with them, all of these aspects, right? But the main thing is that you also have to continuously reassess this segmentation. Things change so dynamically, right? So all of these things have to be accounted for when your preferred supplier lists are being created. So that's one part of it, of course. And when you have segmented it, when you've decided that, okay, we're going to focus on the relationship with these five strategic suppliers, you have to then go around all of these aspects in terms of, are our SLAs green on the outside and just red on the inside, looking at the watermelon effect, performance management, looking at risk across various levels, right? Looking at holistic risk picture in terms of what is supposing the talent attrition level, are there any management leadership changes that will affect your business as well? Because when you're speaking at that level with the supplier, these little things which you don't, probably would look at in a vendor become very important when it comes to your supply base, right? So having a holistic picture when it comes to your supplier is very important. And of course, joint innovation. I think one of the concepts that we were, just I remember writing a blog on this a couple of years back is the RFP dead? Because there was so much joint solutioning happening with vendors, especially across those white spaces that solutioning has to happen together. You're still figuring out things. You're figuring out even the business requirements in that place, right? So when it comes to these type of activities, we found that joint solutioning was very, very popular. There were large workshops that clients were having, our clients across major industries, trying to figure out what the solution should be, partnering so well with the supplier ecosystem, and coming up with great solutions and long-term contracts. I think Rahul mentioned that deal tenures are becoming shorter, right? Especially with AI, productivity, all of these aspects come into the picture. But when it comes to doing these joint solutioning activities, you're really looking at a very long relationship that you're able to set with your customers as well. So with that in place, I think I also want to talk a little bit about, just the supplier portfolio as a whole, right? You're looking at a large number of suppliers a lot of times, and I mentioned that it's very important to segment them. But is it also important to think about your supply base as a whole, right? We're looking at your entire portfolio. Some of them may be tail spend vendors. Think about them as tail spend. You're looking at your preferred supplier list. Are we seeing more of, supplier portfolio consolidation efforts in the industry? Are we seeing more of rationalization, or are we seeing more of, okay, let's just add, newer suppliers for niche skill sets, explore some areas within, technology, new technologies, AI, and all those aspects? So, Shyam, I think I'll lean into you for this particular question, right? What is your view when it comes to how supplier portfolios have been evolving from your experience?
Yes, so I think I just go back to what Bappa was and you were mentioning about the SRM program. So I think at B Brown we have a very structured and formal approach to cover at least 30-35% of your spend wise with the supplier. So segmentation, coming to your point, we need to invest into these. Let's say now these could be because they're supplying you critical products or raw materials or packaging or many other areas where you can define the definition. But cautiously organization have to spend a lot of time and management connect and also a trust level with these key suppliers, because and that will propel then also the, let's say, the next level of innovation. Obviously one of the challenges with large corporation find is that it is slow to develop the products while they partner with the trustworthy suppliers or supply partners. Then the speed to market just reduced by 30-40%, even in some case 50%. So you can bring the product faster, you can realize your revenue faster, you have somebody very reliable to making for you, or even the services side of it. So I think one segmentation is very critical is you define which are your preferred suppliers. Now this could be two approaches. One is on the spend, another equally important on the new product. sometimes we also encompasses that we are not doing such a big business with the supplier who has a very attractive product portfolios, either of the service portfolios. So you have to segment that, okay, where you want to put your efforts. And then the remaining 50% suppliers are actually including your tail spend and also the spend which possibly you would not like to put so much efforts, resources, and also the organizational resources into it. I think these approaches has definitely delivered a very good benefit even during the pandemic, after the pandemic, and even now, as we say, when we have the geopolitical disruptions also coming in. Um, Now we also see a big. Mm, if I talk about direct material, the suppliers are always the number of suppliers are always not so such a huge, and you have a kind of a very natural consolidation. So let's say if I'm talking about the pharma world, then we buy APIs and we can buy the same API by two companies or maximum three companies, because the validation time is so long and you yourself spend so much money to develop. So naturally, your supplier in the direct space will not prosper in thousand. It will be in hundreds or maybe 200 or 300 or maximum 500. The real challenge actually comes in the services space and indirect space. Now, I being into pharma, big pharma world also, where indirect is actually larger spend than the direct one. People just feel otherwise, but actually the pharma spend more money in the indirect one. And there you will find that companies, because for the historical tactical approach, they have developed huge number of suppliers. So actually there are tail spend, but beyond the tail spend also you see a huge number of supply base. So companies are now taking an aggressive approach that how to consolidate, optimize, um, maybe not really doing it with the intention of reducing the cost, because many times we also find across suppliers which are supplying, and maybe it is developed for one location or let's say for certain set of services. They are competitive in that, but if I move it to some other larger supplier, my price will marginally go up or maybe there is no gain. So companies are looking overall some now that, okay, I deal with 1,000 supplier, in 3 years from now I will have 300 suppliers, my cost will remain the same or marginally go down. It makes sense, because what the other thing which we not able to measure, it puts lot of pressure on the operational part of it. When you are managing 1,000 supplier, you are generating lots of transaction from the 1,000 supplier, you are also doing all the procurement operations and then the finance operations and also supply chain operations. So I think it all adds. So from indirect cost perspective, if you deal with the smaller set of suppliers, it makes lot sense, and that must be the trend you might be also seeing it across. But it is easier said than the done in indirect space, to my experience. Direct space, yes, I think it is mainly focused on the new products and the business risk aversion. So you don't want to commit to one single supplier for one API or packaging material and then your lines are stopping in. So these are some of my initial thoughts, from my experience.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. And when it comes to, just looking at the overall global lens, when it comes to suppliers, looking at how much, effect they have on spend product, that really gives you the whole picture. Now, I wanted to, just take the conversation to a different lens after this. But before that, for the audience, we have an offer here today, and this is a price check that we're offering, right? So these are price benchmarks that we will be giving to you as Everest Group, just as a thank you and welcome for attending our LinkedIn Live. So we will be sharing, the link on our LinkedIn if you look in the chat. So do take a look at it. All you need to do is fill out a simple form, and you will be getting access to complimentary price benchmarks from our end across the specific role as well as geography that you select within it, right? So do take this offer. It's a great offer, and we're excited to connect with you or for those who register for it, right? All right. So with that offer in place, I want to switch back our conversation and take it to a different lens now, as I promised, and speak a little bit around ESG, right? Now, ESG has been, I would say, it's been in the market for a long time. It is becoming more and more popular. A lot of people have mixed responses to it, right? Some say it's more of greenwashing. Some say it's a must have, right? Even in terms of RFPs, we're talking to clients who are looking at ESG parameters when it comes to even their services suppliers, right? Not just their direct suppliers. And thinking that, okay, at the end, if nothing works, then ESG is going to be a deal breaker for us when it comes to it, right? But still, at this point, I would say we are facing a lot of challenges in terms of measuring ESG well and thinking about what to do with all the information that suppliers are giving us, putting it in the right place, right? We have a lot of tools in the market that are helping us give ratings to suppliers, diversity ratings, environmental scope 3 emissions, all of those things are going on. But what is actually happening in the market? And again, Papa, I would lean to you for this particular question. And what is your view? Greenwashing or real? You know?
No, I think it's a very interesting element, and I get a little personal when it comes to the ESG, right? So forget about being procurement angle to put, which I definitely would gonna allude, right? But before that, what I personally also feel as a human living, agent, right, in this universe, we also have a moral responsibility to give something back to our society for which we are using the resources, right, since we born, and that's a great opportunity that if you can even able to contribute 1% in your whatever role you are playing, not only in procurement, in any role that you play, if you can contribute even a very slightest portion to help the ESG agenda, I would say that can only be a very good feeling, I would say, right? Beside anything else, right? So that's the one aspect to bring as a human. Now, when it comes to the professional angle, right, and my opinion, so undoubtedly, this is an extremely important and timely question. I would say, Banusri, in this 2025, ESG in procurement is no longer just a compliance checkbox. It's a value driver now being perceived across the industry, but we have to be honest, as you also hint a bit, there is a thin line between genuine sustainability efforts and greenwashing, and the difference lies in transparency and accountability, in my opinion. At many organizations, we have moved towards embedding ESG criteria in supplier onboarding, performance scorecard, and as you said, in RFPs, contracting, making it mandate, even in different contract clauses. We look at actual impact, as an example, carbon emission, labor practices, diversity spend, not just marketing, not just to claim some bit of marketing angle, right? And we audit the data, and we should audit the data, I would say. And procurement has the power to influence the entire supply chain. And when done, ESG becomes a lever for resilience and brand equity, long-term growth, and not just a feel-good matrix, I would say, right? So we have to see how things evolves in years to come. But definitely, all stream needs to put a equal amount of effort to make it happen. And things are changing. Honestly, things are changing with the awareness campaign, with keep on having executive connects with the supplier and the customer landscape perspective. Having those redlinings being mitigated with discussion. Alignment on the goals. Imagine, as a customer, I might have some goal, we supplier might not have the same equal goal by achieving it by that date. So eventually we need to sit together and see what realistically possible, and but take it very seriously and make it an objective top to bottom, from CEO level to even to the extreme down, as the performance objective. And with that top down trip and with all the good intent, I'm being very optimistic and hopeful to make this ESG happening as we anticipated for this beautiful earth.
Yes.
Completely concur, Bapare sir, and we are also seeing, I mean, it's not just a compliance check as you rightly pointed out, right? There are in RFPs, right? We are seeing detailed questionnaires, understanding the overall, ESG impact that suppliers have been able to make, And again, it's now part of some of the core criteria of selection as well, right, for a lot of the large and even the mid tier enterprises, right, that we are currently seeing. So completely agree with that. So I think considering the time as well, I think our discussion cannot be complete, right, without talking about AI, Gen AI, agentic AI, and certainly we are seeing a lot of vendor proposals, right, full with impact of Gen AI, tech infusion across the BPO, IT deals, right, especially in the indirect spend areas. And in fact, the overall expectation as well, right, from enterprises have certainly increased, right, with all the hype around Gen AI, people using ChatGPT, etc. Right. So I would just lean into Shyam, right, in terms of what in terms of the overall tech adoption as well as the AI adoption, right, in your company, especially in the last 1 year, considering some of these themes, right, really driving the overall market.
Yes, so you are right. I think technology uh, is ever evolving, and now discussion around AI last 1 year have been very forefront of all the function, including procurement. So what we are seeing is people already using so basically coming into category team and the procurement operations team. I think we are seeing more adoptions in the procurement operations side of it, where the very repetitive jobs they can easily be replicated through AI. I think initially there was a question mark that how accurate and financial risk and all those things, but I think on operation side we can even go next 3 to 4 year quite deep drill into AI. So I think that is well established, and it is delivering value to the organization because it is reducing, let's say, what we have people doing it, and accuracy levels are also very significantly higher. So it's clearly delivering, especially on the category side where the value wise procurement, let's say whether it is supply chain cost or HR services cost, or let's say marketing and sales services cost. I think those are still something which is, let's say, for category by the side of it, and he will be using. It is not really adoption, and where we are not seeing any tangible gain. While there are pockets and areas which are clearly, uh, let's say, for example, if we finalizing the subcontract for logistics supplier, so AI can definitely help us bringing in very quickly what is the current market looks like, and also so I think category manager will always used to struggle with this. Similarly in the marketing and sales services side, so it is still in the evaluation, I would say. But it is not, I personally see, where we can completely go away with the category manager roles per se. So
Yeah.
it will continue to be there as a good a tool to use it and be more accurate and more forecast accuracy coming in, where we can say that okay, if I sign in for this particular services for next 3 years and these rates, this looks more, and these formulas are valid or not, because some of disruptions are so strong that the formula you put in for the pricing today can go totally out of your contest for next 3 years. So those accuracies are actually driving. So these are some of the trend in AI and technology side which we are seeing it. And of course, let's say as in all other areas, procurement is also seeing a lot of tools coming in with the AI equipped. So whether it is let's say your catalog buying, which is what was the one,
Yeah.
and we are seeing it that it is coming more and more now. Um, and it continue to be in that space. So these are some of the trend which we are seeing it. Also from offshoring, outsourcing, I think because procurement is involved in those contracting discussions. So some of the customer insisting that these many portion of the services, this much percentage driven by AI, and then the rate card will be obviously different. So those things are also getting condition put in for outsourcing, offshoring company, and companies are adopting for it because you cannot say no that okay if customer is asking for and it is possible and you are doing it. So It is also the other way. Then many of the offshoring, outsourcing company were portion of the work they are getting done from the AI, but they are charging a rate card to the customer. So I think those changes will happen. So these are the some of the changes and the evolving trends which we are seeing. So in my opinion, procurement operation will be larger impacted if you say the procurement impact cost. And from the services side, I think customer will insist at least 20-30% of the services get delivered through AI in next 3 years. And organization has to prepare for that perspective from outsourcing offshore.
No, I think these are great perspectives, right? And when we look at the impact of AI, we have also felt that there are a lot of pilots happening and there are a lot of use cases we see across. And sometimes, we get asked the question by a lot of large enterprises within procurement teams that how do we, orchestrate all these use cases together to have a single AI roadmap, right? So that we're all thinking from a holistic lens and we're trying to take things in a singular direction when it comes to automation. So, in fact, we've also seen when it comes to automating things, autonomous sourcing tools are sort of taking up that, right? Automating the entire sourcing process and orchestration intake tools. ProcureTech is becoming very hot with all these new tech providers that are coming in, right? So, some of these tools are coming in to play that role of getting and
So I also have
synchronizing
one
all of this.
apprehension that, and
Yeah,
we are procurement community. We anyway have a very limited number of resources in procurement,
right.
and with this AI coming in, when I speak to my teams, they are a little bit nervous that okay, it can further reduce it. So I am very transparently sharing these are the apprehensions within the procurement community. So
Yeah.
procurement is not which will have 100 or 200, 300 people, and okay, if you have 50 people going away with the AI, but yeah, when you have 20 people or 30 people and you say, okay, 5 people job AI can do. So I think those part as a larger organization, especially with the functions which are not so heavy in the resources, but in a heavy in the impact, have to also looked into it. So it also for many viewers or who will watch this later on in the LinkedIn, I think the upskilling with the AI tool it will be a must. And it is must for everybody if either a 10-year experience, 20-year experience, or 25 years experience, or 15-year experience. Because suppose for any reason if you get impacted, your next role likely will be have some angle of AI coming into it, and if you're not upskilling from that perspective, then getting again back into the job market could be challenging.
For sure.
I think
Certainly,
great
Shyam.
point. Now,
Yeah.
which I may, to add a couple of interesting observation and my take on this AI, right? So having what Sam says, can't agree more. And Manushree, the way you have put it into the real-time context, I think fully spot on, right? For me, the real opportunity of Gen AI lies, in combining human judgment with Gen AI capability. That's the crux of the puzzle, right? And if I take an example of Gen AI product from Microsoft, right, which is Copilot, right? It calls Copilot. So you are a pilot. The authority, decision making, the accountability, responsibility, and everything is on you. And that Copilot, that software, or that AI solution is kind of an assistant to you to support in your work that you intend to make it better through AI, right? The second element is, and I think Sham, you touched upon a very important element that uh, IT, and to build on that, right? IT is adopting AI, Gen AI across industry, across universe. No matter what, it's a race. You can call it. It's a buzzword. You can call it proven productivity, not proven productivity. It's a debatable thing, right? Now, imagine being in procurement. IT is adopting or contracting or want to contract, want to buy AI, and being in procurement, how could you support if you are not skilled enough with the know-how of AI? So that makes the point what Sham was telling. You need to be upskilled with AI. No matter that you need to be a technical guy in role to be an AI skilled. In your current procurement role also, I call for an action to everyone who is seeing now this event and also in will see the recording. go for an AI training, try to understand what this AI actually is all about in a very simple words, simple language, no bombastic words or so many, so on and so forth, and then try to connect the dots. Because if you don't get the basics, if I say, you need not to be expert, right? Being a non-technical guy, then you won't be able to deal with your suppliers when they would be submitting the proposal on AI. Because to crack a proposal on supplier and get a good deal for your client, you need to solve the puzzle, which is the pre-sales. How they are bundling the product, what are the features they are adding, what is this price good or bad or ugly, right? Because you don't have any baseline, it's a new product. So but is it good enough for that money? So all of those things I think is very important, and for that basic AI knowledge is absolutely needed for us. The third and last element is adaptability. We buy a lot of solution, and even in our personal life, we tend to buy many things probably which is not a need but want, right? So now organization would buy it. Now adaptability. So that becomes a very much challenge, and how to approach that. In my opinion, approach would be, you know, go with a pilot phase, try to adapt that product, have a skin in the game from suppliers. Don't pay for POC, have a MVP, very quickly done. Then have a short-term tenure and see the ROI is expected to be generated, and then you get a lock-in your commitment with the supplier, not before that, right? So that would be a bit of few piece of my advice when in and around of AI. Thank you for allowing me to put this perspective.
No, I mean, of course, thank you. These are all great perspectives, right? And sometimes we're just asking large companies that, do you feel your organization is ready for AI in terms of even the processes, right? Because some processes and some systems in general are working on very legacy stacks. We're working across a lot of use cases, complicated product value chains. Are you really able to get AI to transform the value chain, or are you only able to use it for select few opportunities that you may get here and there? So change readiness assessment is something that we recommend before actually even thinking about AI as an organization, right? And when
I
it
think I
comes
would
to
suggest Everest Group can come with some maybe short programs or online programs which can help upskill some of the procurement professionals. I also been approached by a lot of premier institutes which are running these courses or program, but Everest Group is well placed to do this because you have such a big spectrum of organization interacting with you, taking services and adaptability. So, yeah.
great, of course.
In fact, we are doing some of those, Sham, right, through some of our, briefings, right, with some of the procurement leaders, right, how AI, some of the reports, right, you can also have a look, right, in our website, around how the overall playbook, right, in terms of AI, change readiness, and all of those things, right, we are kind of talking about. There's also a framework, right, that we have kind of built in this area. Right? So somebody who's interested can just look into our website as well, right? So we do cover some of these insights as well.
Great. All right. I think a lot of talk around AI technology, but a lot of interesting conversation around various aspects that a sourcing leader cares about, right? How to manage in times of uncertainty, how to look at ESG, thinking about building better relationships, becoming a more value focused function as a whole, getting a seat at the table. All of these aspects were very well discussed. I think one thing I want to leave the audience here with is that when it comes to times like this, when crisis again and again occurs, we don't just call it a crisis, we call it a perma crisis, right? So constantly there's a need to upskill, constantly there's a need to upgrade yourself when it comes to the thought process, when it comes to using technologies, or when it comes to transforming your processes. So keep that in mind as you go on with your organizational journeys, right? And of course, interesting perspectives shared here. We would love to hear from the audience as well as to what is sort of the feedback on this. Do you also feel the same and all of that? So feel free to continue posting in the comment section, right? And we'll definitely reply to all of those and continue this conversation on an ongoing basis. But I think this was a great session, and thank you so much, Papade. Thank you so much for joining this, and Rahul as well. We're really, happy to have you on this panel, and thank you so much for guiding this discussion in such an insightful manner.
Thanks, Panushi. Thanks, everyone, for joining in.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
You.
Bye bye.